Mike Tyson never planned to walk into that restaurant. He didn't make a reservation, didn't call ahead, didn't even know where he was going. He was just driving through Brooklyn on a cold October night. One of those nights where the streets are quiet, the wind smells like rain, and memories sneak into your car like uninvited passengers. Tyson drove aimlessly until a small, warm light caught his eye. A tiny restaurant at the corner of a forgotten block, with a flickering sign that read, "Mama Rosa's," in faded red letters. He parked. Something about the place felt familiar. Not the sign, not the building, not the street, but something in the air, something in his gut. He stepped out of the car and walked toward the entrance, hands in his pockets, hoodie pulled over his head. He wasn't looking to be recognized. He wasn't looking for attention. He just wanted to sit somewhere quiet, somewhere that didn't feel like the world was watching. The moment he walked inside, warmth hit him. Actual warmth, not from the heater, but from the atmosphere. The restaurant wasn't fancy. Wooden chairs, mismatched tables, dim lights, old photos on the walls. But it felt alive. The smell of garlic and fresh bread filled the air. There were families eating dinner, a couple sharing a bottle of wine, an old man reading a newspaper. It felt like home, even though Mike had never been here. A young waitress approached him, nervous and wide-eyed. "Table for one?" she asked. Mike nodded, giving her a small smile. She led him to a corner table near the kitchen doorway. Tyson sat down and looked around. Every detail felt strangely familiar. A picture of a woman making pasta, a photo of kids outside the restaurant from the 90s, an award plaque from 2004. Tyson narrowed his eyes. Something about the place tugged at his memory like a string attached to his past. Then the chef walked out. A small man, maybe mid-40s, wearing a stained apron, tired eyes, and a limp that suggested years of long shifts. When he saw Tyson, he froze. Not in fear, not in surprise, but in disbelief, like he was seeing a ghost he never expected to see in his lifetime. "Mike Tyson," the chef whispered. Mike nodded politely. "Hey, brother." The chef swallowed hard. I wasn't expecting you." "Yeah," Mike said. "I wasn't expecting me either." The chef forced a smile, but there was something in his eyes, pain, fear, gratitude. Something Tyson couldn't identify. Can I bring you something special?" "Anything's fine," Tyson said. "Whatever you recommend." The chef vanished into the kitchen, and Mike watched him go, confused by the man's strangely emotional reaction. The waitress brought water. People whispered quietly but respectfully. Tyson stayed in his corner, quiet, observing. Then he heard it. From the kitchen, a voice, crying. Soft, muffled crying. Tyson recognized it immediately. It wasn't the cry of someone hurt. It was the cry of someone breaking. He shifted in his chair, listening. A second voice, older, deeper, tried to soothe the first. Then the kitchen door swung open slightly, and Tyson saw the chef again, wiping his eyes, breathing shakily, trying to compose himself before coming back out. Tyson's stomach sank. Something was wrong. The chef approached with a plate of steaming food, but his hands were trembling. Tyson noticed the redness around his eyes. "You okay, brother?" Tyson asked softly. The chef tried to smile. Yes, just a long day." Tyson leaned forward. "Sit with me." The chef blinked. I shouldn't. I have customers." "Sit," Tyson repeated gently. The man looked around nervously, then lowered himself into the chair across from Tyson. His hands shook as he placed them on the table. "What's your name?" Tyson asked. "Luis," the chef answered. "And why were you crying in the kitchen, Luis?" Luis inhaled sharply. Tyson's tone wasn't accusatory. It wasn't forceful. It was gentle, caring. The voice of someone who had cried in too many kitchens himself. Luis tried to speak, but no words came out. His throat tightened, and tears filled his eyes again. Tyson nodded. "It's okay," he whispered. "You can talk to me." Luis swallowed hard. I didn't think I'd ever see you again." Mike frowned softly. "We've met?" Luis gave a weak laugh. "You don't remember, do you?" Mike shook his head. Luis exhaled shakily. 22 years ago, you changed my life. But I never got to thank you. And I never thought you'd walk into this place, this restaurant, this place that exists because of you. Tyson stared at him, confused. Because of me? Luis wiped his eyes. Mike, you own this restaurant. Tyson blinked. What? Luis nodded. You bought the building 10 years ago. Quietly, through a foundation, the Tyson Community Housing Trust. You saved it from being demolished. You saved my job, my family, my life. Mike leaned back, stunned. He had donated to so many community programs over the years, housing, youth centers, small businesses, but he never kept track of which buildings belonged to which program. He never asked for credit. He never wanted to. But this was personal. Why did I help you? Tyson asked quietly. Luis gave a trembling smile. Because of what happened in 2001. Let me tell you. Tyson sat still, listening. Luis looked down at his hands. I was 16. My father had just died. My mother was sick. I was working in a bakery, earning almost nothing, and one night I got mugged behind the building. 3 guys. They beat me. They took everything. They left me in the alley. Tyson clenched his jaw. Luis continued, voice shaking. You were training in New York at the time. You happened to be driving by. You saw them run. You saw me on the ground, and you picked me up. You carried me inside the bakery. You called an ambulance. You stayed with me until they came. Tyson blinked rapidly. He didn't remember. He had done things like that countless times. Quiet acts of kindness nobody ever heard about. Luis's voice cracked. You told me, you're gonna get through this, kid. Don't let one bad night ruin your whole life. Then you paid my hospital bill. Every cent. Roos. He wiped his face. You saved me, Mike. I swore I'd repay you somehow. Years later, this place was about to be shut down. I was going to lose everything. And then someone anonymous bought the building. Someone made sure I could keep this restaurant. I found out years later that someone was you. Tyson felt something deep inside him shift. He wasn't used to hearing these stories. He wasn't used to knowing how far his kindness had traveled. I didn't know. Tyson whispered. Luis nodded. I know. You were never doing it for recognition. Luis took a shaky breath. But there's more, he said softly. Something you don't know. Tyson raised his eyes. Luis wiped his tears again and whispered, My son, my boy, he's alive today because of you. Tyson stared, stunned. What do you mean? He asked. Luis clasped his trembling hands together. My son had leukemia. We couldn't afford the treatments. Insurance refused to cover most of it. We were drowning. About to lose the house. About to lose him. Luis swallowed hard. And then one day, the hospital told us someone anonymously paid our outstanding balance. Someone paid for the next 6 months of treatment. Show. He pointed at Tyson, tears streaming down his face. That someone was you. Tyson looked away, overwhelmed. He had donated anonymously to hundreds of families, but hearing the impact directly, it hit him like a punch he never saw coming. Luis whispered, My son is 12 now. He's healthy. He's alive because of you, because you saw value in people like us. Tyson felt his eyes burn. He rubbed his jaw, trying to hold himself together, but Luis wasn't done. That's why I was crying, Luis said. Because every day I open this restaurant, I know it exists because one man decided to help strangers he never met. And tonight, that man walked through my door like some kind of miracle. Tyson swallowed hard. His voice broke slightly when he finally spoke. Where's your son now? Luis smiled shakily. He's in the back, doing homework. Tyson felt his chest tighten. Can I meet him? He asked quietly. Luis nodded, tears streaming again. He would be honored. He stood up and motioned Tyson to follow him toward the back of the restaurant. Tyson walked behind him slowly. heart pounding in a way it hadn't in years. They approached a small table near the kitchen. A young boy sat there, pencil in hand, textbooks open. He looked up when he saw Tyson. His eyes widened, his jaw dropped. "Dad," the boy whispered. "Is that?" Luis nodded. "That's Mike Tyson." The boy stood up, nervous and excited. Tyson crouched slightly to be at eye level. "You're Luis' son?" Tyson asked. The boy nodded. "My name's Marco." Tyson smiled. "Nice to meet you, Marco." Marco hesitated, then stepped forward and hugged Tyson tightly, completely unprompted, completely sincere. Tyson froze at first, then closed his eyes and hugged the boy back with both arms, feeling something break and heal inside him at the same time. "You saved my life," Marco whispered. Tyson inhaled sharply. He had heard thousands of cheers in arenas, hundreds of chants from crowds, but nothing had ever hit him like those 4 words. He held Marco a little tighter, voice trembling as he whispered back, "You saved mine too, kid." Tyson kept his hand on Marco's back for a long moment, grounding himself in a feeling he didn't expect. Gratitude, guilt, relief, and something like fatherhood all tangled together. When Marco finally stepped back, Tyson remained crouched, looking at the boy's face, the same face he unknowingly helped save. A life he didn't even remember touching, now standing in front of him like a living reminder that the world is full of unseen consequences, some painful, some beautiful. "You keep working hard," Tyson told him softly. "You listen to your dad. He's a good man. And if life ever gets scary, you come talk to me. Understand?" Marco nodded quickly. "Yes, sir." Tyson smiled. "Good." Luis stood behind his son, hands trembling, tears on his cheeks. He looked as if he wanted to say 100 things but couldn't settle on even one. Tyson placed a hand on his shoulder. "You raised a good kid," Tyson said. "You did that." Luis shook his head. "No, Mike, I didn't." "You did. You gave us a chance." Tyson opened his mouth to argue, but his voice cracked. Instead, he just squeezed Luis' shoulder gently and nodded. They walked back to Tyson's table, where the plate of food sat untouched. Luis sat down across from him again, this time with a calmer expression, one that held 12 years of gratitude he finally got to release. "Mike," Luis said, exhaling, "there's one more thing I haven't told you." "And?" Tyson raised an eyebrow. Luis looked down, twisting a napkin between his fingers. "I didn't just keep this restaurant because of your help. I kept it because I wanted it to be a place people like us could come to. People from the neighborhood, kids with nowhere to go, families who needed a meal, people who felt invisible." He tried to steady his breathing. "You saved my life," he continued. "I wanted to spend the rest of it saving others." Tyson stared at him, speechless. Luis wiped his eyes again. "We serve 27 free meals a week. No questions asked. We keep a tab for families who can't pay. We hire kids who just got out of trouble. We give food to the shelters. And every single time someone asks why, I tell them," his voice cracked, "because a stranger showed me kindness when I didn't think I deserved any." Tyson felt his chest tighten. Hard. "You didn't have to do all that," Tyson whispered. Luis smiled shakily. "That's the thing about kindness, Mike. It spreads. It grows. It doesn't stay with the person you gave it to. It moves forward." Tyson looked at the restaurant with new eyes. The families, the warmth, the walls covered in pictures, the kitchen that smelled like hope more than food. This wasn't a business. It was a legacy. A legacy he didn't even know he had helped build. Luis stood and motioned Tyson toward a wall near the kitchen, one Tyson hadn't noticed before. Photos covered it from floor to ceiling. Families, kids, elderly couples. Pictures of people smiling with meals in front of them. Notes taped beside them reading, "Thank you for feeding my family. You saved us. We won't forget this. Hope tastes like your food." Tyson stared at the wall, overwhelmed. Then he saw something he didn't expect. A picture of his own face. Not a fancy framed portrait. Not a promotional photo. Just a small, grainy picture someone had printed from the internet years ago. Underneath it, written in black marker, "For the man who made this possible." Tyson stepped closer, touching the wall with trembling fingers. "I never wanted credit," Tyson whispered. Luis nodded. "And you never asked for it. That's why you deserve it." Tyson didn't cry often in public. But he wasn't in public right now. He was in a place that felt like home without ever being his. A place built on kindness he didn't remember giving. And so he cried, quietly, shoulders shaking, forehead pressed against the wall of gratitude letters he never expected to see. Luis stood beside him in silence. After a while, Tyson spoke in a shaky voice. "You kept this place alive." Luis shook his head. "No, Mike, you gave it life." Tyson wiped his face with the back of his hand. And for the first time in many years, something inside him settled. Something that had been restless for decades. Something heavy, finally put down. When Tyson returned to his table, the entire restaurant had grown quiet. People weren't whispering about the celebrity anymore. They were watching a man reconnect with a part of himself he'd forgotten. A few minutes later, Marco came over shyly, holding a small takeout box. "For you," he said. "It's dessert, my favorite." Tyson gently placed a hand on the boy's head. "Thank you, champ." Before he left that night, Tyson found Luis one last time. He shook the chef's hand, not with the grip of a fighter, but with the warmth of a friend. "You ever need anything, you call me," Tyson said. "And I mean that." Luis nodded. "I know." Tyson walked out of the restaurant, the cold Brooklyn air hitting him again. But this time, it didn't feel empty. It didn't feel heavy. It didn't feel lonely. He paused outside the door, looking back through the window, the warm glow inside. The family's laughing, Luis in the kitchen, Marco doing homework. The wall of gratitude notes, a restaurant that existed because of a moment he forgot. But the world never did. He whispered to himself, "'Cause you were right. A champion isn't just someone who wins fights." He placed his hand on the restaurant door one more time. "It's someone who helps people fight for their lives." And with that, Mike Tyson put on his hood, stepped into the night, and walked away from the restaurant he didn't know he owned, but one he would never forget again.